Hi everyone, welcome at Wayfact. Today with David Fernandez, who is the partner at Accelerate and senior blockchain developer at vSchool. And today we're going to talk about how to become an actually good blockchain developer. Thanks, David, for being here. It's a pleasure talking with you and looking forward to what we are coming up with today. And starting off, I would love to hear about what are you actually doing, what are your passions. Feel free to introduce yourself if I missed something. Yeah.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, Kevin. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here. Just a little bit about me. So David Fernandez, I'm 26 years old. I'm based in the US. However, I'm actually from Venezuela originally. Been living in the US for about a decade. And I actually switched my career from marketing to computer science. So no computer science, actually, to programming. So I'm actually one of those people. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to switch their careers to something more technical, and I actually was able to achieve it. So one thing that I guess I would tell to everyone that wants to go into Web3 and also software engineering in general is that it's obviously possible. You don't have to take a 4-year degree. The resources are free. The resources are there on the internet, and there's actually no reason for you not to become a blockchain developer, software engineer, or anything that you want to be. And there's actually no limitation. So that would be, I guess, something that I would just tell everyone if you're thinking about switching to Web3. So
Awesome. That's so great about the internet in general, right? You have all sort of resources you actually need and want, and you're free to do whatever you can. And, yeah, perfect. Love this. I see at vSchool you're actually passionate about educating people, right, about Web3 and how to actually become a blockchain developer. So the first thing that I would be curious about, I have my own opinion about that too, but I would love to hear from you. What do you think what makes actually a good blockchain developer? What are the KPIs basically, or the key indicators or measurements, what you have to come up with as a blockchain dev?
Yeah, so I guess the KPIs, I would actually say that it would be security. Unlike software engineering in general, there are things that you can fix later on. If there's a bug in your code in the Web2 application, then you can fix it later. However, in Web3, that's not the case. Once your contract is deployed on a blockchain, and if there's something wrong, then unfortunately, it's not you can just go and change it after. I mean, there are ways you can go about it, but it's not going to be necessary. I would not say that would be very convenient. So if there is something that makes a really good blockchain developer, I would say security. That could also be gas efficiency, but as something that I think that it would separate yourself from others is security. So for instance, learning how to apply certain Slither or Mithril, or using certain tools such as hard hat, specifically for testing, using just unit testing, integration testing, just trying to do the things that it takes a lot of time, and probably the founders that you're working with probably want to take a little bit of a shorter time frame for testing and security. However, you should actually emphasize that. And because if things go wrong, everyone is going to blame you. And, obviously that's not ideal. And there are a lot of resources out there for it. And actually it's a standard and best practices for companies and Web3 projects to use third-party auditing firms to audit the code. And that should actually be something that you should always ask. And even that doesn't get rid of vulnerabilities, but it reduces it substantially. So that would be something that I would say that blockchain developers that would separate yourself from others. It would be security. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, completely agree with that. In general, Web3 or smart contract development, in my opinion, should be around test-driven development, right? As you said, once deployed, you usually can't change anything or not that much, yeah? And what you can change is something you already have thought of, There are patterns, there are ways to change minor things, but you have to actively put that into the smart contract, right? Either by adding these kind of setters where you can change the values, or using the proxy pattern where you actually just replace the contract under the hood. So yes. Really interesting. Yeah. Something to add?
Yeah, no, that you are absolutely correct. Yeah. And yeah, just to go back to what you were saying about proxy contracts. Yeah, so the thing about them is that, yeah, the most of the time developers don't actually build proxy contracts, so they can't even use that, right? So proxy contracts is, you have the logic on one contract and then you have the inputs on the other. However, most cases, like for instance, NFTs projects, they don't have proxy contracts. They just have NFT minter and that's it. So I mean, once you mint that, then how are you going to go back, right? So it is something that I would say try to do a good emphasis of that, and yeah, that would be the only thing I would add. So
definitely, yeah. And for many projects, it doesn't even appreciate it if you do so, right? Because the community might flutter around because you can change the contract to a large extent, and that's usually not something the community likes.
Yeah. Yes, it's true.
So yeah, actually, we have already heard of what makes a good blockchain developer. So what could be interesting now is what kind of exact skills does a blockchain developer need to actually get to that point where he's able to write secure code, where he's able to write code that doesn't need to be changed afterwards, and so on. What do you think about that?
Okay. Sorry. I feel that's. Could you repeat that question again? Because I think I got a little bit confused with the first one and the second one. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, in general, my question is more about we know what the target is, the aim is writing secure code, having code that's deployed on the blockchain and doesn't need to change too much because the customer hasn't seen his requirements in the contract, right? And so on. So what kind of tools or mindset or skills does a good blockchain developer need to actually get to that point to write good code, secure code, or code that actually meets the requirements of a customer?
Yeah, so obviously a very strong foundation of object-oriented programming. I think I would say that's very, very important because you're going to be using JavaScript or TypeScript, and they're all object-oriented programming languages. And also just having a good understanding of distributed systems, maybe, but it's just to really have a good foundation of how this technology works, how blockchains actually work, what are what's actually cryptography, what are hash functions. It's just to understand what's under the hood, really. What's bytecode, what are APIs, how can you use them to build a front end or just to build a script on Hardhat and then just start interacting with the contract using Ether.js, right? So it's just to have a good foundation of JavaScript, I would say Solidity, object-oriented programming, and also just to understand the how blockchain works in general. And so that way you can apply that to a product or whatever company or project you're working on, right? So the whole purpose of the technology is just as good as the problem that it solves. So probably you actually want to identify the problem first and see if blockchain Web3 actually solves that problem, because you don't want to build solutions to something that it doesn't need a solution in the first place, because no one is going to buy it or even need it. So I would say that would be something that's good to tackle, and to know the foundations and also understand what problem you're trying to solve first, and then do the reverse engineering after.
Awesome. Yeah, in general, that's exactly what I aimed for, the requirements engineering, right? Basically, evaluating what the customer actually wants, and even then ensuring that they're building something, or at least telling them if it actually might make sense, at least from a technical perspective, that's worth building or so on. And
Yes.
for sure, from a business perspective, you always have to evaluate, as you stated as well, right?
Yes.
That's super important. So very interesting points already said. Since there are many Web3 developers actually just starting out right now, it's amazing that you actually come from a marketing background and made that 180-degree shift basically into the Web3 world. Love this. Basically respect as well, because that's definitely not that easy to wrap your head from a non-technical, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that easy. Yeah.
So.
Thought about giving up many times, man.
But you got it, man. Now you're teaching others, so the world changes. Since you made that change basically for yourself, yeah, and you're teaching people now, what do you think are the first or best starting points for new devs or Web2 devs entering the Web3 space to actually get started?
Yeah, so I don't want it. I don't want this to sound as like I'm selling something, but so I see that there's a lot of problems when it comes to curation. There's this video on YouTube from Patrick Cullen, which is great, but I still think that there's a few things that you still need because he doesn't, for instance, he doesn't really do too much emphasis on security. He does a lot of things in production. I mean, I would say that's actually a very, very good course. However, there are a lot of different things that you can add to that course, and by that I mean if you want to switch careers from Web 2 or Web 3, or you are non-tech like I was, then I would suggest, I'm actually building a course for currently building a course for to help those people, and because I actually understand it, I did it myself. I come from a non-tech background. I'm a blockchain developer working now for multiple projects, and I've learned so much along the way. I've got rejected many times on interviews. I mean, hundreds of times. Learn a lot about just being interviewed, how to answer verbal questions, coding interviews, and so forth. So I think that if it's someone who wants to, it's possible. I think you can do it in a year if you're a non-tech person. If you hustle though, within a year, it's definitely possible. I would say if you're a Web 2 guy and you like to hustle, probably 6 months. I would say 6 months to a year, and it can obviously be 2 years. That's not, I mean, there's people that take them a bit slower, might not be for them. So I would say anywhere between 6 to 1 year, and then for a few people, maybe just 2 years. And I guess that would be the timeline. That's obviously varies here and there. And try to have, like I said before, just a good strong foundation of computer science, object-oriented programming, and also learn JavaScript, and try to understand JavaScript first very well. It's not necessary, but if you want to really get hired, you need JavaScript because you're going to need to test your contracts, and no one's going to hire you if you don't know how to test your contracts because of the security issues that we already mentioned. So JavaScript and Solidity, and I already have a few roadmaps, but you probably have seen them. So my course is actually exactly that roadmap that I've been posting on LinkedIn. It's just the foundation, then it's JavaScript, and then Solidity, and then start building projects and building websites and portfolios for that. So
is there already a link to that course, or isn't it official?
That's in process right now.
Okay. So let me know. Otherwise, I would put it into the description as well. No worries. It helps people,
Yeah.
So since you're actually coming from a non-technical background, I'm not sure how well, I think you can answer that quite well as well. Yes. What kind of difference do you see between Web 2 and Web 3, and what kind of mind shifts might Web 2 devs need to go through to actually get to the point where they can write secure, and I was about to say maintainable, but maintainable code.
Well, that works, man. Understood. Yeah, so I guess the main one is immutability and also transparency. So those are beautiful things that Web3 provides to everyone that wants to be involved in this space. And Web2 doesn't necessarily have that most of the time. I mean, you cannot really go and access the servers in AWS and go check the algorithms, or you can just go and search for the algorithm on YouTube. So there's a lot of private data that probably would be better off if everyone sees it, so that everyone think that the system is fair and it's not being compromised. I would say that would be the main difference between Web 2 and Web 3. Web 3, obviously, you can have access to all that data, and the data is transparent and it's immutable, and that makes it very unique. I would say those are the two big differences: is immutability and transparency from Web 2 to Web 3. Now, when it comes to development, it's exactly that as well. The security part, if you make a mistake, it's not like you can go and fix it later. In Web 2, you can fix bugs on JavaScript. You can make your website upload a little bit faster later. You can use Next.js later. You can obviously do that too with Web3 for the front end part, but that would be, I guess, the main difference between those two different worlds. It's just the way they view things. I just wanted to add this. So I think that Web3 is a very collaborative space. I think that people here in general are very positive, try to help each other a lot. They're very, every now and then you'll see, one of those haters in your comments, but it's just a very small, it's just like ants, and we just like a huge army of people that really want change. And also the reason why I'm creating a course is not only just to provide others with a good pathway to Web3, and also obviously make a living for that, but also because I thought that, oh, look, I can make a protocol, and let's say, for instance, that it's a successful one. But what about if I am able to teach hundreds of people how to build things? Wouldn't that actually be better for the space? Maybe just instead of just being myself supporting and adding value, why not about 1,000 people that took my course and they are able now to build protocols that can completely change the way that we see crypto? I mean, that's a better way for me, because I do believe in the system. All my money is in crypto. I'm all in on this, passionate about this, and this is something that I love doing. So I think it is a win-win for all. So
awesome. So you're bleeding right now, as everyone else as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Connecting to that, we have now seen how you can actually enter the Web3 space. And there are always some kind of mistakes or errors which could be avoided if someone would know about it beforehand, right? What would you think or state here? What should new devs watch out for when developing smart contracts first, for maybe a specific, or maybe more or less specific mistakes or errors developers can usually make?
Yes. So obviously so you're talking about bugs in code, or
I don't want you to list all sorts of different bugs right now, or security issues, but rather what kind of issues, yeah, or maybe let's go down that route. One or two most common security issues you think could be easily avoided if the smart contract devs actually knows about it, or at least thinks about it?
Yes. So obviously reentrancy guard and noise access control. However, I would say that if you really just want to get rid of the main ones in a very fast way, just try to use Slither. So you install it with Python, and you can install it in your computer, and you can start running Slither in your code, and then you can see certain possible vulnerabilities, and it's going to show you very quickly things that could be changed or should be changed using just a tool, and that automatically shows that. And I would say that that was something that if you're a developer, using one of those tools is free. It's open source, and it's not really complicated to use them. Obviously, probably you just require a little bit of a little bit more of an intermediate to advanced level to know these bugs and how to fix them. But it's something that you just need to be patient. I think that a lot of people that come into this space, especially tech space, is that they're not very patient. They want to see results in 3 months. I mean, usually it really takes longer if you're coming as a newcomer like me. Like I didn't really see anything until like the first 6 months that I started to make more sense of everything. Because I didn't know any programming before. I didn't know anything about computer science. I mean, I knew about crypto, but I didn't know about, what's NPN and what are all these packages and dependencies that I have to install, what's a command line and so forth. So just try to be very patient, I would say. So
even more crazy. Sounds like a
yeah.
super steep learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. It was pain, man, because I couldn't even follow up a tutorial because they started installing things and I couldn't make it work. And I was like, fuck, I'm just giving up now and just watch this tutorial later.
Yeah, dependency hell, right? That's always a thing. Never ends. Yeah, one last question. Not sure if you have an answer for that. Any exciting, interesting stories you actually have currently in your mind where you say, hey, that's actually something where people can extract some value out of it, or it was just funny, or maybe dealing with a customer, you know, not saying the name of the customer, but I think you get what I want.
Yeah, well, just a funny story. I've talked to a few millionaires like whales. Some of them I've talked to them personally, and some of them are really cool. Some of them are douchebags. I'm not gonna say the name of this guy, but the guy was really a douchebag, man. And so don't. So I was being interviewed by him to work for him, and I obviously didn't pass. But even if I passed, I would not say yes after the meeting. It was just so bad. It's just like try to, if something that I learned from working with projects and people, and just also, you know, just projects, startups and so forth, is obviously money is very important when you're broke. So try not to quit your job right away. Try to do the transition part-time into this space. But very important, more important than money, is to try to find a good leader and a good environment where you can grow and where there's not much stress, because blockchain development is a very stressful job. It really is.
Especially in bull
And
markets.
oh yeah, it's a very stressful. I mean, it pays very well, it's true, but it's stressful, especially at the very beginning. So obviously the longer you're here, then the easier it gets. But I would say just to not be discouraged by meeting some people that might not believe in you, and to keep pushing, that you don't need anyone else to believe in you but you, and that you are enough to do whatever you really want to do, and you can achieve anything. So don't be, don't be, don't be, you know, don't be, how can I say, don't lose the
Faith.
energy, yeah,
Yeah.
the faith. So
Awesome.
so yeah, just keep moving forward. So it's just with everything, but
Awesome. Love this. That's basically a great ending message for the audience. Stay consistent, stay true to yourself, and fight through the noise, right? Keep pushing. And yeah, thanks, David, for having me, for taking the time. And I hope you had as much fun as I had. And yeah, it was a pleasure talking with you.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen, for having me. It was a pleasure, man. Hope to see you again. So
Yeah, likewise. See you, man.
see
Bye.
ya. Bye-bye.